Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a simple fun one for you, but we're gonna mix it up just a little bit. Instead of, painstakingly break down every single little move that we're gonna do, I'm going to kind of give you a big picture and then speed up the process so you could watch it, so you don't have to sit here for 2.5 hours and watch this thing kind of unfold in front of you. So I hope you like this format. I'd like to give a shout out to my man A Music for letting me use his awesome stuff for this today. And without further ado, let's take you right in. Alright, so as usual, we're just going to make a new canvas. And I made a pretty big error there, and I made my canvas CMYK. We want to work in RGB. And you'll see in the first few minutes of this video, it actually gives me a whole bunch of problems, and it takes a little while before I even catch on that is the problem. We're just going to make a new layer, and we're just going to make a shape. It just looks basically like a potato, and potato is fine. Right, here's where the CMYK RGB thing, I'm like, why is everything turning red? Why am I having to do all this jump through hoops? It's because I'm stupid. Learn from my mistakes. So we're just adding on to this shape. You don't have to stress too hard, and we're just using the lasso tool by hitting L. And we're filling it in with Option Delete. Just making some shapes here. I'm thinking this is the main or the center part of this structure. We want to create something with a little bit of perspective here, right? So just every time I make a new element, just pop it on a new layer. Sometimes you do it once, sometimes you do it twice, until you get the one that feels right. And you can always move these around. Right, so just keeping with the basic idea that the objects that are closer to you are generally a little darker or have less, air and atmosphere between them. So this is the way that I'm going to create a little bit of separation in my initial kind of sketching here. I like to just make lots of little nuggets. Right, some of them you're going to use, some of them you're not going to use. And we do this just, the best way to do this is to make one, and then repeat those elements and group them together, and then move on and make a new element, right? And sometimes they integrate themselves really well, and sometimes not so much. And right there you saw, I finally figured out we were in the wrong color mode, and we want to be in RGB. You just got these little bits and try to slap them together in something that looks like a something. It's going to go on for a little while. Here's a good time to let's speed this up a little bit for you. So once you have something that you feel okay about, like the shape feels good enough, like we're going to leave this, then you want to start building over that, right? Start flushing out some of the interior of that. And you do that in basically the same exact way that you made these initial shapes. And that's by making more shapes and just putting them on their own layer, putting them on top of these other pieces, right? By using the clipping mask, in the layers palette, just holding Option and clicking between the two layers, and you'll get that little arrow guy that allows that layer to only affect the layer below it. And you can use this method and just work your way around, putting it over your different pieces, painting in some different values, maybe some a little lighter, maybe some a little darker, and just kind of experiment around and see what you're going to get. There is no wrong in any of this. Right, maybe there's a little engine here, there's a little thing here, a line there, and we do this, and we're not making huge value changes when we add in these things. Right, it's not huge, and we're keeping most of these on separate layers, right? we want that flexibility. We want to be able to change it. So very simply, again, we're making shapes over shapes, bringing in slightly lighter values, and using this kind of coloring in magic below layer thing by holding down Option. Start to kind of figure out what else is going on here, right? We got some background here. We're just copy and pasting this one piece we made because we're lazy, and it's fine. And we just kind of keep by Option dragging. We're duplicating this guy. Change the opacity. Lower it down as he gets further back, which is going to push it away from you. And then this process of making shapes and then either coloring in different parts or just selecting different parts and using levels, Command L, which is super useful. This will go on for a little while now. Okay, now we're going to get into a little bit of color here. And the way that we're going to do our color today is by merging all of our layers down by holding Command Option Shift N, Command Option Shift E, and going into Image Adjustments Match Color. Now you want to make sure that you do this on your very top layer, right? So important note. And what this allows you to do is basically pull the color palette from any image that you have open. Right, so you go down here, you see source, and I'm flipping through these images and see what it does. This is like the ultimate cheat. So we'll find one that we kind of like. And we're not married to these. We can use these as a color blending mode to give color, or we can just keep it as it is and paint on top of it. But we're going to use this one for now. We see that's what it does. It kind of does a lot. This is a little much, kind of erase this out. You can also set it to color here in the blending mode, but we're going to use this for now and just paint a little more on a new layer above it. Just paint in some little atmosphere, right? Let's give this thing a little bit of scale. The way that we're going to do that is by pushing some of these other elements a little more into the background, right? I'm going to add a gradient map over top here, play with the color a little bit more. So you go into gradient map, the values on the left are going to be the dark values. Look for different colors, play around. We got some pink, some purple. So we're going to keep that one and we're going to play with the blending modes and see if any of these give us something cool. And we just wind up taking the opacity down a little bit, and that kind of gives us something that's, it's got a little bit of a cool feeling to it. A little curve on there, an adjustment layer. Just throw a little gradient on there so it's lighter at the top, a little darker towards the bottom. And since we have all these pieces, right, still below there, I can always command and click on the thumbnail there. It'll give me a selection and I can paint in and out on a specific area. Merge it, flatten it, and do the image adjustment match color on it again. And now look what it does. Because it has a lot more color to grab onto, the effect is much more extreme. I want to tweak it a little bit, so we go into color balance, the image adjustments, color balance, and in my midtones and highlights I set this kind of how I like it. Now we're starting to get something that's a little, colorized. Just a big light source here, try to give this a little something something. But this is the main way, that the easiest way when you have a grayscale image, you flatten it down, you get this image adjustments, match color to something you like, and you can use that to just paint right over on top of it and keep going with your piece, or you can use that as a blending mode like color, which is just going to kind of put a tint over everything. I'm going to add a little bit of try to get a little bit of atmosphere and effects. So I've got this debris brush, which is basically a bunch of dots, and I'm going to just put a bunch of this kind of debris. These are pieces of sand, whatever. And just paint a bunch of these in here on its own layer above everything. Name that debris. I'm going to do another one, make another new layer. I'm going to do some more debris, but I'm going to put a motion blur on this one. So we do a little motion blur. Figure we want them moving horizontally. Add a little bit, and then I'll give you a little bit of an effect. Now make another new layer. So I got a big soft brush and a very light color, and I just want to add a little more kind of highlights or little bits here. Add as much of this or as little of this as you want. I just find that having a couple of little accents, right? So now we're going to add some of these things that I made in Illustrator in about 5 seconds. I'm going to put these on there. You can put anything you like, use the type tool, rasterize that out. The important thing to getting it on there is to make the perspective kind of work, and then double clicking on that layer and using the blending mode there. You'll see it again in a second here. Right, copy and pasting this one on. Try to match the perspective a little bit if you can. And double clicking on the layer, holding down Option and dragging those little sliders. It's gonna bring the background through. And of course your friend opacity, just drop that down. Put this one on there. Again, double click, blending mode, sliders. For the next 20 minutes or so, probably I'm adding in little highlights, copying, pasting these little elements on, adding atmosphere, trying to add enough information in to kind of sell it, and then enough atmosphere and debris and all of that to really make the thing feel situated. Right, this is going to go on for a while, so let's fast forward it a little bit, shall we? Right about here, we're getting towards about the end. You can see we got some finishing touches going on. We did some smudging on certain parts of it. We added some noise, which is always a nice touch. And we added a little smoke coming out of that little reactor engine buddy in there. And lo and behold, we wound up with something that looks kind of like this right here. I really appreciate you guys coming to watch. Thanks again to Akoda Music for letting us use his stuff. You are the man. And if you like this video, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. That's all we got for today. Until next time, guys.